Mohamed Adow.
Thanks, Danny, and thanks, Tasneem. The numbers are very stark. We are almost 10 years into the Paris era of climate action. Despite the clear evidence of the spiraling crisis, the scale of the response to tackle climate change has been woefully inadequate. If you look at mitigation, we're on a pathway to 2.7 degrees of warming. If you look at adaptation, we haven't built sufficient resilience to withstand the predicted changes. And now the biggest issue is finance. The financing gap has been growing, and this year, as you've heard from my colleague, this is the year of finance. Let me make this clear. The currency of the Paris Agreement is the NDCs, the nationally determined contributions, or the national climate plans. But to be able to actually deliver on those climate plans, you need finance. The rich world has done everything to shirk their responsibility to pay up the climate debt they owe the rest. Baku has to be the moment when we turn this around. This COP has to decide the ways we're going to generate and deliver the much-needed climate finance that the rest of the world expects from the rich historic polluters. You can't let a global minority that is also the wealthiest, that has largely grown rich, in part by polluting the planet without facing the cost of doing so, to get away with their responsibility. We're here, the world has changed, and so it did last week. But let's remember, the last time Trump was here, everybody stuck in. We need more of the same. Actually, it's more important today for us to ensure global solidarity. Now, if you look at the scale of the crisis that we're facing, we can't let one man destroy our common planet. It would be irresponsible to let one man effectively sabotage the collective effort of the rest of the humanity in tackling the biggest geopolitical threat we face. We know the impacts are increasing across the world, and in my part of the world, we're now being ravaged by extreme weather events that exceed our coping mechanisms. Now, you can't let the most vulnerable and the least responsible bear the brunt of the changes without extending them solidarity. And that is what COP29 is about. This year is the year of finance. And this COP has the potential to decide the direction and the fate of the planet. But that can only come about if the rich historic polluters genuinely honor the promise they've made in 1992. It's taken us 32 years for the rich world to recognize and deliver on the commitments to deliver the support that they committed to provide the developing countries. 9 years after the Paris Agreement was signed in 2015, we're yet to decide and agree on a quantum of climate finance that meets the needs of the developing countries. We're yet to decide on the quality of the financing we're going to provide developing countries. And if you remember the 100 billion, a lot of that was actually repackaged aid and effectively auctioning developing countries to take on loans to contribute to solve a problem we didn't create in the first place. That is a scandal of the current, climate finance that we have. And that is not something we can actually accept. And if you look at the international climate finance architecture, something that was created when majority of our countries were still colonies, it's a rich historic polluter who continue to call the shots in each of the international financial institutions. Now, we can't be able to tackle the biggest existential threat the world faces if we don't rebalance the playing field and hold the rich historical polluters for the climate debt that they owe the rest. I think the time to pay that debt is now, and that debt needs to be paid by each of the rich countries in a way that helps us meet the needs of the developing countries so that collectively we can be able to tackle the climate crisis. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohamed.